That was so cool. Whoa. Environmentalist Paul Hawken tells the story about his search for how humanity could reverse global warming. He says, in 2001, I began asking experts in climate and environmental fields a question: do we know what we need to do in order to arrest and to reverse global warming? I thought they could provide a shopping list. I wanted to know the most effective solutions that were already in place and the impact they could have if scaled. I also wanted to know the price tag. My contacts replied that such an inventory did not exist, but all agreed it would be a great checklist to have, although creating one was not within their individual expertise. After several years, I stopped asking because it was not within my expertise either. Now, that story shocks me, and also I am not surprised. When the experts are focusing on just the damage done and none are creating a shopping list of effective solutions to turn things around, that says to me hopelessness. That says to me despair. I mean, why create a shopping list anyhow if you don't believe you have any money in the bank to spend, right? Why create that list when you are convinced the problem is way beyond your power to solve? That's the real issue, our sense of the power that we do have, what we believe about that. Now, we are definitely in trouble if we believe that the only kind of power that can heal the planet is a kind of power a president has, or a corporation, or a government, or the current leader of the EPA. I'm sorry, I'm getting political on you. We are definitely in trouble today. But there is another kind of power to consider. It's the kind of power that is manifested by a seed. The seed does not need to have power over everything surrounding it. To become the seed belongs to something larger than itself. It belongs to an environment of sun and soil and rain and honeybee. And by virtue of the free interplay between all of these things, growth happens. It is not power over, it is power with. This is exactly the kind of power that is manifested when two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom come together, and it is just a small chemical reaction, but out of that emerges something way larger than the sum of the parts, and it is also completely surprising. I mean, who could predict that from parts that are themselves undrinkable, you can get something that is drinkable? Who could predict that? This kind of power. It is also the power of many different actions that seem inconsequential in themselves, but they are all part of a larger movement for change. At first, everything seems unchanged, and then a tipping point is reached. And the new day that we have been dreaming for, that we have been working so hard for, that day comes, and we are amazed. Paul Hawken says, people who are literate in the sciences may feel disempowered or think that what they do to address the issue is meaningless in terms of making an impact. That is because we are focusing on what you can do. We can instead focus on what we can and are doing. Paul Hawken is talking about a very special we here. It is a very special kind of identity. It's the identity of an Earth ally. And the more, the better. The more Earth allies there are, the more centers of small actions for positive change there are. And that means the closer we get to that tipping point and to the large-scale transformation of our seventh principle dream. There is more to the Paul Hawken story, as told by Minnesota Post writer Ron Metter, and I really want you to hear it this morning. The shopping list, he goes on, the shopping list of climate change solutions was still outside Paul Hawken's expertise in 2013, when increasingly dire climate headlines of the game over theme, game over, it moved him to launch the Drawdown Project. which would eventually engage more than 200 climate scientists, engineers, economists, public policy analysts, and other experts in scribbling one highly strategic shopping list of 80 workable, compatible solutions. There's no pipe dreams here, no celestial pies, no necessity to sharply lower living standards. Above all, no reliance on a massive shift of government policy or a surge of multinational cooperation of the kind we used to hope might drastically cut greenhouse gas emissions. Instead, indeed, a key appeal of the drawdown strategy is that it assumes no breakthrough in reducing industrial emissions via government dictate. Instead, it emphasizes voluntary reductions for which there is already a strong business case, and more importantly, more creatively, on ways to pull emissions back out of the atmosphere. There is money to be made in most of these 80 endeavors. There are new jobs to be filled. Most bring ancillary enhancements to the quality of life on the only planet we've got. Absent from the list are giant gazillion-dollar air filtration facilities to strip carbon from the air by force, and sky blankets of reflective aerosols that could cool the climate to the point of disaster. Using moderate projections on the pace of possible adaptation and conservative calculations of atmospheric impact, the drawdown experts conclude that levels of CO2 can be made to decline starting in 2050 or so, a little later if efforts lag, a little faster if they accelerate. And that's the story of Paul Hawken's Project Drawdown. Have you heard of this project in the news? Why are we not hearing about this in the news? Why? Because this is hope. Are you hearing me? This is hope. A couple weeks ago, I said, we got this. And that is hard evidence that we can get this. A couple weeks ago, UUCA's Combat Climate Change group invited the congregation to take a questionnaire. The results are perhaps unsurprising, but nevertheless important. Out of the 140 people who participated, 95% strongly agreed that the seventh principle is central to their Unitarian Universalist faith. 93% strongly agreed that individual and small group actions are important to reducing climate change. And then 84% strongly agreed that I personally commit to combat global climate change. So let's do this. Let's go from agreement to action. Let's take part in the drawdown strategy and help make the drawdown vision of CO2 levels starting to decline around 2050 real. Let's make that vision real. It can truly happen. It is no pipe dream. We can be Earth allies. The Combat Climate Change group has developed a short menu of fairly easy actions for individuals and families to complete by the end of May. I want to walk you through some of these things before we start to get busy, and we're going to have a little bit of music underneath this part, this instructional part. I want you to look inside your order of service, and I want you to take out this big old UUCA Earth Allies Action Guide. Take a look at this big old trifold. And specifically, I want you to take a look at the large green box on the front where it says our UUCA commitment. Y'all there? So in this box, there's a list of 8 suggested actions to perform by May 31st, and they include replace 3 light bulbs with LED bulbs, replace furnace/AC filters older than 12 months, carpool/ride share to UUCA with another household, remove meat, especially beef, from a meal, go for a walk in a nature setting, buy for or read to a child an appropriate children's Earth stewardship book, review your electricity, natural gas, and gasoline use, and review and discuss with family and our fellow UUCA members the information on the websites that are listed in the resources section of this guide. In a moment, you're going to take a pencil from the pew in front of you, or if you got a pen, circle one or more actions you will do in May by May 31st. But hold off yet, because there's something else I want you to see, and that is the Earth Ally Pledge Form. And this is what this looks like. Once you've decided on your actions that you are going to commit to, in the month of May, you will move to the Earth Ally Pledge Form. You're going to check off the same actions that you chose from the guide. Sign the pledge. Tell us what your age is. It'd be so cool to hear how many people participated who were like under, between 5 and 10 years of age, for example. And sign your name. Let us know who you are. The ushers are going to come around in a moment to pick these up. If you're not done, when the basket comes around, you can hand your pledge in to me where I stand in the receiving line over here, or you can just place it in my office mailbox. Be sure, by the way, now hold up, I'm still talking here. Hold on. Unitarian Universalists are an industrious people. But just hold on just a little bit more. Be sure to take this action guide home with you. Our Nicole Presley, our wonderful communications person, put a lot of energy into this to make it attractive and informative. Use it as a resource for all types of Earth Ally actions. As you come to worship services in May, you're going to want to look for the Earth Ally station where you can report your fulfilled pledge to the attendants, and they will record it on a progress chart. These guys, if we are industrious, these guys are extra industrious. You want to let them know what you've been doing, how you've been fulfilling your pledges. In June, we're all going to get a sense of how our small actions are combining and contributing towards the drawdown movement towards a better future. June is when the Combat Climate Change group will report the numbers of pledges made and pledges fulfilled. And now, grab that pencil. Let's get busy. Start with the action guide and then go to the pledge form. And in a moment, we'll pick those pledge forms up. Thank you.